Enhance your cloud device management with Microsoft Intune Suite. Now we're on track again. So my name is Jörgen Nilsson. I work in the secure client team at Onevinn, and with me I have Niklas Ahlberg somewhere. I saw you in the chat at least.
Yep, I'm here. So Niklas Ahlberg, work with Jörgen within the secure client team here at Onevinn, and I have the pleasure of working with Intune and the Intune Suite, which is the topic for us here today.
Yes, that's correct. And it's actually fun to do a webinar, a whole hour just about licensing, and so many turned up. No, that's not what we're going to do. But basically, Intune Suite is a licensing bundle, right? But we'll talk about the components, the biggest components in there. Cloud PKI, Enterprise Privilege Management, Advanced Endpoint Analytics, Enterprise App Management, and Remote Help, which is the features that actually enhance our device capabilities and end user experience insights. There are other parts in the licensing bundle as well. We don't work with licensing, so I'm not going to answer any question about licensing, but basically this is where we are now, right? We have 3 different SKUs of Intune. Plan 1, Plan 2, and Intune Suite. So basically it's divided into 3 now, and it can be kind of confusing what's included in these. But we have the things we're going to talk about today is in the Intune Suite, all of them. Some of them can also be purchased standalone. So if you only want one feature, you can purchase it standalone. That will be cheaper. But if you need 2 or more features, it's probably cheaper to buy the Intune Suite than to buy the separate licenses. And Intune Plan 2 is also covered in Intune Suite. So that was everything about licensing, I would say, Niklas. Let's move on to Cloud PKI instead.
Let's move over to the more interesting things, right?
Exactly.
So I'll just go ahead and steal the sharing here from you, Jörgen.
Yes, please do that.
Okay. So Cloud PKI sounds good, right? So initially I mentioned that I had the pleasure of working with Intune and the Intune Suite, and looking back in the mirror, my least favorite topic would definitely be the management of certificates, because it could be really hard to accomplish, especially if we don't have like a third-party radios and so on. So Cloud PKI will definitely make our lives a lot easier in terms of delivering those skip certificates to our devices. So some quick facts, if you haven't seen it before. Basically what it's all about, it makes the certificate management easier for our cloud-based devices, and this because we don't need any infrastructure anymore in terms of internal on-premise hosted PKI solutions. And if you have been working with Intune and for a while, you probably know about the pain about getting NDES and the Intune certificate connector working all together. There's a lot of security hardening for NDES as well. So once we are actually, going strong with the NDES solution, we need to make sure it's still secure. So it takes a lot of time, and this is where Cloud PKI, in my mind, really shines. We have some great monitoring features as well. Once we have delivered a certificate, we need to be able to kind of follow it over the full lifetime and revoke leave certificates and so on as well. It does require an Intune enrolled device, but it does also require it to be Entra joined or hybrid Entra joined if that's your preference. So just another kind of important fact here, it is not a radio, so it doesn't solve authentication for your Wi-Fi controller, access points, VPN, and so on. So you still need to have something else for the authentication side of things. So if you're using NPS or Radius, something, you know, that could be pretty hard to deal with when you are working with Entra joined devices only. So a third-party Radius is definitely recommended as well. So yeah, and it's a two-tier topology here. So we have a root CA and we have an issuing CA. That's what we can do with Cloud PKI at the moment. And just kind of a last kind of gotcha that we have seen before. So Cloud PKI is generally not configured and managed by Intune admins. Most of the time, security admins or someone from the security team want to be able to do this for us as in Intune admins, right? So, and what we have seen before is that we give those security members, our team members from the security team, the full Intune admin role, but that's definitely not recommended because they can do everything within the Intune portal, right? With those permissions. So that's why we would really recommend the use of RBAC to create a custom role for this to kind of minimize what they can do. So to follow the principle of least privileges. We do have a good support for both Windows, Android, iOS, and iPad, and Mac OS. So we could basically deliver certificates to all of these platforms, which is great. So it kind of covers most of the time everything that we need. That's our experiences, at least. So that's it. Let's have a look at it. Let's have a demo. Or look at a demo. So here I have my admin portal. So when I go to the Intune portal and I head over to the tenant admin blade, if I do not have an active license, this one here, the Cloud PKI button will actually be grayed out. So that's why you won't be able to click it. But once you have enabled or activated a trial or you have bought the licenses required, then you can go ahead and click it. And this is where we will go to configure Cloud PKI within our environment. So the first thing we want to do is create the root certificate, root CA, right? So let's do demo root CA, something like this. Description, and next thing is to decide whether this is going to be a root certificate authority or an issuing like a subordinate or intermediate CA. So for this one, we'll pick the root CA option. Let's go with 10 years validity period. The EKU, the extended key usages for this one, we do actually have a good amount of EKUs here, but for this one, we'll just go with something simple, server authentication and client. And we need to be able to identify this as well. So for this one, I'll just put name here as well. You'll probably use something else in a production environment. So this is the only required subject attribute. We could fill and add a lot more. We probably want to do that in a production environment, but for demo, I'll just going to leave these because they are not required. And for the encryption, we have these these possibilities and options here, and for this, we will do the RSA 2048. And then we'll need to add permissions to this one. So this is where in a custom Intune role and scope tags would make a lot of sense. So when we give our hand over this to the security team or whoever is going to manage Cloud PKI for us, we need to make sure we scope things accordingly as well. So I'm not going to click save or create here because I already did that to save some time. So let's say this is the one we just created. Next step is to download the certificate, right? Because we need to make our devices able to trust our root CA. So we need to download that certificate, and then we'll upload it and create a trusted certificate policy type, and we'll then add it to the trusted root, basically. So computer certificate store root, and this will then we will deploy this to our devices, and this in this demo here it's for Windows. So for when I check this already, I can see that I have gotten the certificate here for the root CA certificate, and it's placed in the trusted root CA folder. Okay, so that's it for the root CA, but that's not everything. We will need to have some like a subordinate CA as well, and within the Cloud PKI, it's called the issuing CA. So let's have a look at the properties here. So good thing to know is that once you have created a CA, you won't be able to change anything. So we need to make sure we get it right. Otherwise, we will need to go back and kind of redo our config. It is nowadays possible to remove a CA. Back in the days, or back a couple of months or weeks, we actually had to create a ticket for Microsoft and ask them to delete it for us if something if we needed to. But now, which is a good change, we are actually able to delete it ourselves, which is of course great. So for the issuing CA, we will need to make it an issuing CA. We will pick one of the root CAs to kind of get that chain of trust going. We will only be able to use the extended key usage. Pick the ones that we picked for the root CA, right? And validity period and so on. And then we will need to do the same with this certificate as we did with the root CA certificate. We will need to download it and make sure that we deploy it to our devices. So if we go back to my configuration here, and I would do PKI. I'll just search for PKI. I should be able to find it. Okay, so here it is. So now we need to create, just as we did with the root CA certificate, we need to do one for the issuing CA as well. So it's a template, and now we will just place this one in the intermediate folder or the store, and once we have received it, we are going to find it within the intermediate CA list here, certificates, and here it is. Okay, so for this one, yeah, there it is. So RE issuing CA 01. So this will be the certificate from the issuing CA to get that chain of trust going. And last step would of course be to deliver the SCEP certificate to our devices, right? Because now we have just established that trust. We need to deliver the leave certificates as well, and we will do so by creating yet another policy within Intune. It's a SCEP certificate template, and it could look like something like this. So let's have a look. So for the subject name format, we could do a lot of things here. If your radius are able to kind of integrate with Entra ID, I almost went back to basics there for a while, Jürgen, with Azure AD. Entra ID, then it would make sense actually to kind of have a device ID of the device itself. Because it will actually be able to check the device ID. But otherwise, it would probably make more sense to kind of change it to the device name instead of the ID. So it depends on your preferences and your strategy. and options. Validity period will for this demo just 2 years, and where do we want to store it? I always pick this one, but yeah, it also depends on your whether it's a virtual machine and so on. So it's you need to kind of scope it down to your assigned platforms. Key usage, digital signature, key and cipherment, and key size. Well, we need to make sure we pick the same key size, which we put in on the root and issuing CA. Hash algorithm and so on. You have probably seen this before if you have been working with certificates. And then for the EKU, we have the extended key usage. And for this one, I'll using the client authentication, because let's just play around with the idea here. I'm going to use this to authenticate to my Wi-Fi. Renewal threshold, this is really great. So we picked 2 years, right? And we can actually say, okay, so how long before we are actually going to renew the certificate to make sure we don't, it's not doesn't expire on us. So when it's 20% time left out of those 2 years, it's actually going to renew. And this certificate server URL is coming from the issuing CA. So this is the skip URI. So when we configure our issuing CA, we will need to copy this string here, this URI, and just paste it here. And once we have done that, and if we are successful, we should have a personal device certificate issued by our issuing CA. And because we picked the device ID, is going to give me, show me the device ID, the enter ID, device ID for my device, right? But if we pick the device name, it would show your device name here. And just to see here, this is our leaf certificate, and here's the chain of trust basically for it. So leaf, issuing, and the root. And that's it for setting things up with and configuring Cloud PKI. It's not too much to get going. Definitely much easier than doing it the way we have been doing for HS with this on-premise PKI. So yeah. Over to you, Jürgen. EPM, feel free to steal the presentation here.
Yes, I will. This is one of the most important features in Intune Suite, or as an add-on, as its own as standalone, of course, as well, is the endpoint privilege management solution. There are some requirements. We need to have the machines need to be Entra joined or hybrid joined. They need to be enrolled in Intune, of course. Something we run into a lot now is SSL inspection or package inspection. This goes for Intune as well. So if you use that, you must exclude the necessary endpoints, otherwise it will not simply work. Windows 365, Azure Virtual Desktop, and Workplace joined devices is currently not supported. So it's only everything else than that. Something also to keep in mind is that the agent itself, the EPM agent, it's self-installing, so there's no client to deploy. It's also self-uninstalling, but it's not immediately. So if you target the user and the user logs on, you get your policy. EPM agent installs, then you remove the policy. It will take 7 days for it to uninstall. So it will be there a while longer, right? So if we look at the features we can do, then this is something we need to take into account, and we'll talk about it and show it later as well. Microsoft has implemented this in a way that's kind of different from many other solutions, and that's local virtual account that is being used to elevate the processes or application or install or whatever it is we're trying to achieve. And they've done that because of security, of course, so we don't elevate the end user's token itself. But it also comes with some challenges that we'll talk about soon as well. We can configure our own rules to say that we want to elevate an application automatically. So if you have an application, we know that it needs to be elevated. We can elevate it automatically and the end user doesn't have to do anything about it. We can also configure our rules to require credentials. So I have to log on again. It supports Windows Hello for Business and everything in that prompt. We can also require business justification. Why do you want to do this? Is it just for fun or is there actually a purpose behind it? And we can also require support approval. So there's a note showing up. There's a task showing up in the Intune portal that a specific user wants to elevate a specific file. It supports installers, MSIs, and PowerShells at this point in time as elevation handlers we can hook into. So if we have a small look at how this would look for the end user if we start in that point. So I'm a local user, and this is, we need to do some end user training, because if I go in here, for example, or if, let's do it like this instead, let's do like this. I search for command prompt, and then I have run as administrator. Run as administrator will still be there, so it's not the EPM handler that's run as administrator. And this is where the end user training will come in if we don't automatically elevate the application. So I have to do open file location, and now I get another option saying run with elevated access, which is actually the hook for EPM instead. In this case, I said I need business justification to demo it. And then that will be logged as well, of course, the reason why I do this. I haven't said, and then I need to say that I need some permissions as well to actually do this. And that's quite annoying as I enter the machine from a different account and remote controlling it. And then I can elevate my command prompt in this case. So in this case, I have a policy either targeting command prompt saying I can elevate it or I can elevate everything. And as I said with the virtual account, if I do who am I now, it will say that it's not Jorgen, it's a virtual account with the underscore and $sign in the end. So that means that I won't reach network resources from that command prompt. So as we said, that account is good, but it also comes with some limitations and challenges. So that's actually how easy it is for the end user to elevate. They don't have to do anything else or show anything else or do anything else. It's just working as they normally would. So what have we done in the background to get this to work, right? So to start with, we have some great reports. These reports actually show all the elevations that are happening in my environment. We have different types saying unmanaged, support approved, or automatic, or unmanaged. Right? Unmanaged, that's when I am a local admin, so I can elevate it whenever I like. So I just log on to my local admin account, I elevate the process, then it's an unmanaged one. User confirmed means that I've done something. Automatic is as it says, it's automatic, right? So we created an automatic rule for it. And this is very powerful because then we can deploy a policy to all our devices saying we deny all elevations with using EPM, but we still get the report for everyone that's local admin out there what they actually elevate. And that's really, really, really nice. And then we can start to do the work from there. We have our policies. So I have a couple of policies. We need a good naming convention, as when we troubleshoot, they'll show that settings catalog and not EPM policies. That's why we need a good naming convention. So here I have my default allow everything. So basically, if I deploy this to a user, they can elevate whatever they like, as long as it's supported by EPM. Is that good? No, but it's better than being local admin on the box anyway. So it's still a good step in the right direction compared to being a local admin. I can say that I want to elevate a specific application. I have reusable settings, so I can import code signing certificates and say that I trust these code signing certificates. But we also must keep in mind that only using creating a rule only trusting the certificate, that's a bad rule, because an end user can rename the file depending on where it is, right? So we want to give it some more information, and file hash is combined with certificate is better, but it's more work. There are PowerShell modules to extract the hash files. We can also get them from, so say that I turn on the request elevation, then I can have this, then I can see the elevation request. And the feature we got now in August, like 2 weeks ago, 1 week ago, which as a new feature is from here. I can see exactly which file, which username it is, who approved it in this case. And here I can see the hash value as well on the file. So what I can do is I can create the rule from here as well. Now, so I have all the information, I don't have to find out the file hash and anything at all. So I can create the elevation rule from here. And that's a good improvement we got this month. So reusable settings is our code signing. Our policies, we have elevation settings, which tells us how to elevate. And then we have a specific for each applications we want to run. Right? File Explorer is another one. That's a challenge, because if we elevate File Explorer, it still requires you to elevate in there. So that won't work either when you get try to modify protected files. We try to solve that with our own Explorer for now until that's supported. So we built basically a wrapper that runs the Explorer, then we can solve that problem. So there are some limitations still, but again, we need to take into account it's still a pretty new product and it solves a lot of scenarios with the features we have today. So that's basically what we have here. And the reports, as I said, the elevation report is extremely important. We can also see which applications are being elevated and by how many, and then we can start to work from there and get rid of our local admins. So get rid of the local admins is our end goal in the end, of course. So what I did to not jump back and forth is I actually did this instead. So if I turn on require approval, if I approve an elevation, it's valid for 24 hours. So the end user can elevate that process for how many times they like in 24 hours. The downside is that there's no notification in the Intune portal. The user will probably request it and then call service desk or something. For now, that can be built on other automation solutions to solve that. But that's how it is for now, at least. We can revoke it if we regret it afterwards, and we must take into account as well that if we deny the require approval request, the end user will not get any notification that it's denied. So we need to tell them that in a different way. Revoke it if we regret it afterwards, and we must take into account as well that if we deny the require approval request, the end user will not get any notification that it's denied. So we need to tell them that in a different way. And I think they implemented that on purpose, so you can actually motivate why you didn't want them to do it, or if we just stick our head in the sand and won't tell the end user. So the end user experience looks like this instead. So I have the same request here. I can choose if I want this. So I enter business justification, and that's good if I want to know why you want to elevate this. Then it will basically say I sent the request for the admin in the Intune portal. Then it will show up and I can approve it, giving a reason saying, yeah, I approve this because it makes sense from a business perspective. And then we have the view we just looked at, that we can see if it's either pending, approved, who approved it, the file hash and information on the file, and we can create our rule as well. For the end user, they will get the notification in the task bar saying that now this is in Swedish, of course, that your privileges are approved. And then when I run the application, I still need to go back and say run as elevated. And then it will say, you have access to this app now, and then you can run it instead. So it's actually kind of good workflow. The only thing we want is a notification for the admins, so they actually know that there's a pending request to elevate. And I guess that's the use case as well. Sometimes it's important, it's fast. Sometimes it's okay that it takes a bit longer. But that's the workflow of it. So how do we do this out in the wild then? So if we have a lot of local admins out there, what I try to do is I deploy my deny everything or deny all elevation policy to everyone. And then I turn on reporting. We do that in that policy as well. Then I will get all the reports for everyone that is a local admin, so we can see, okay, what file are they elevating, and to start with. Then we can go back and say, okay, so if we take top 5, then we take the top 5 and say, okay, so for the top 5 users or files, we'll create a rule saying you're allowed to elevate it. Or we can also say that these 10 users, they elevate so much and they need it in their work, so they are allowed to elevate everything. And then we deploy these policies, and then we try to remove the local admin permissions from them. And then we can also do it in the end if we have, as I said, if we have an application that requires it, we can do it automatically, so the end user don't have to do anything. So that's basically what we want to try out. So that could be a way of adopting this. Start with reporting, get to know what's happening in your environment, but because today, when you have local admins, you don't know what they're doing. And then afterwards, we'll try to switch them to use the EPM, and then we'll remove everything in EPM and just allow them to elevate targeted apps, if that's our end goal. Again, if we just remove local admin permissions, we've done a good job. So what are the lessons learned from the projects we've been running is that the virtual account is good from a security perspective, but it's very challenging as well. File downloads from internet, if they have mark of the web, or if they're blocked because they're downloaded from internet, it will cause an error. You can't elevate them. So again, we need to educate end users on how to handle that. If I do an elevation request for now, that's being worked on as well, I need to be the primary user of a device. And that's also something to keep into account. If you allow elevation for a user, you can elevate on all devices. If you allow request, it's only on the primary device. That would be awesome if that was configurable as well. Support for file arguments and parameters is coming. It's under development in the Intune portal, was added yesterday or Monday maybe. User training is needed. We need to learn the end user to not run as admin. They need to open file location and run as elevated instead. And as we get the question a lot as well, EPM doesn't remove the need for lapse, and lapse is not the replacement for EPM either. It's totally different use cases. But EPM is one of the most exciting parts of the Intune suite. So what haven't we talked about yet? Okay, we haven't talked about developers. Developers, right? Using Visual Studio with the virtual account basically makes it impossible for our developers to work. because they won't reach their repositories and so on and so on. Microsoft is driving an initiative since Visual Studio 2022 version 17.7, where policies can be configured to allow standard users to actually update and configure Visual Studio. But that also have the same, that depends on what you're developing. If you want to debug something, install something locally to try out the service or whatever Win32 app, then it will not work. So that's also a challenge. But as I said, there's different initiatives for developers. So the best way if we're going to target developers is sit down and say, okay, what do you need? How are you working? What tools are you using? So EPM is not an universal solution for developers, and it's definitely not where you should start to use EPM either. You should start with all the other scenarios. So that's EPM for us. Let's move on to advanced analytics. You're still awake, Niklas?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's good. That's good. There's so many things to talk about as always, right? So advanced analytics, that's basically, this is for me one of the most valuable things in the Intune suite, because it provides insights in end user experience that we don't have a single clue of today. We think we're doing a great job, but we don't have a clue on what's happening now. So basically, Microsoft turned on something called data-driven reporting of anomalies. So they built a lot of rules. They're updated every 24 hours. So basically, it looks at, okay, so how many machines have blue screen more than 2 times in 48 hours? Then that's an anomaly. So anomalies is really cool to get some trends in your environment and see what's happening. We can also see resource performance was added last week, where we actually can see how that looks. We have advanced device timeline, where we can see how a device actually is performing or if it's crashing. And we have device query and battery health. So we're going to try to show this quite fast, I would say. So basically, this is an example on how the anomalies could look like. And as I'm not a big fan of widgets in Windows, I get my I like to see it here because it should be turned off, I think, on the corporate device, but that's a different discussion. But that's an example of a anomaly, right? Widgets.exe crashed or hangs on 5% of devices in 48 hours, so it's 1,377 devices affected, right? We have over 10% of devices have done. So I mean, if we think we're doing a good job, and I assume we are, this is amazing to see what's actually is happening out there in the wild. What are the end users experience? Stuff is crashing. We don't have a single clue about it. So that's actually really important. And then if we're going to dig down into this, we can dig down into each of the anomalies, see which computer it is, and get reports. They can group them by different solutions and so on, and different requirements. But we won't show that now. We'll go on to enhanced timeline. So enhanced timeline would be the next way of doing it. And I mean, these different solutions target different areas, I would say. So for me, the advanced analytics and anomalies, that's for the workplace service owner to see which kind of service am I delivering and responsible of. Enhanced timeline is a great tool for service desk. So if I try to troubleshoot the device, how is this device working? And in this case, we can see that I've had some crashes. All the blue ones are information, so it's like log on, reboot, and so on. For the red ones, they are application crashes. If this device would still, if this device would have a blue screen, that would actually be critical, and critical in these bars are green, which is a interesting color choice. But this is extremely important because if I'm from service desk, I have a call, I look at the machine, okay, so this is happening, this is crashing, go in here and see that, oh, I have 10s, 20 of application crashes each day, blue screens, blah, blah, blah. Maybe it's a good idea to either replace it or reinstall it instead of trying to troubleshoot it, right? And if I see a machine crashing, Niklas, what can we do to find out what's happening on the device? Now that we're in a zero trust world where the device is remote and on my kitchen table connected to internet, so you can't connect to it locally anymore?
Yeah, so that's what device query is all about. So it does require us to be on a Windows device at the moment, at least. So if we are doing some troubleshooting in the old way, we would probably at some point connect to the device, for screen sharing and whatnot, and then we would start opening stuff as elevated, check the registry, check stuff from the MNC console and so on. But with device query, we can actually do this directly over the internet. Doesn't matter where the device is located or how it's connected. And we will do so by running queries in the Custo query language. So if you have done some advanced hunting in the Defender portal, you are probably used to running and using KQL, kind of a tongue twister right there. But if you haven't done this before and you need to kind of find, how do I get started and learn the language, you could actually use Copilot in Intune to kind of write what you would like to achieve, and then it will give you the code or the query back to you, so that you can run it. And it's pretty good. There's also a lot of solutions and blog posts and sharings from the community with a lot of examples to kind of paint the picture here and how to get started. And we can do this and use it to respond to security threats. So maybe we want to check if a process is running, which could be running rogue, or we could do it for troubleshooting. It's on demand, and we will actually need to have a trigger for this. And right now the trigger is we will need to do this manually. And it's in real time, so the device must be connected and be up and running. So it doesn't save this kind of data somewhere. It's actually going to query the device when we want to. And at the point, as of today, it's actually not possible to take action on a result. So let's say you're doing some troubleshooting, and you find out that a specific app is not installed. It would be great, right, to have a button. Okay, so the app is not installed. I want to install it. Based on this result, please add this specific device into the group, which will trigger the app installation, just to give an example of how it could be used. So that's something I would like to see personally. Okay, so let's have a look at this. So here I am within device queries. So I have found a device here, and I'll click it, and at the bottom here to the left, I have device query. And this is where it starts. So let's say we would like to see, okay, we are doing some responding to some kind of security threat. Maybe we don't want MS Paint to be running, or we want to check whether it is or not. So just to kind of see how fast this is. I promised you real time, right? So no results because this device is not running MS Paint. Let's open it, MS Paint. Okay, and it's open. Let's hit run. It's going to query the device. Is MS Paint open right now? Yes or no? It says no. That's, am I checking the right device? I am. Let's see. I am not. So that's why. Okay, so this is the device I am on. Device query. Let's paste it so it will query the process. Is MS Paint open? Yes or no? So let's close it just to redo the demo here. Okay, so it should say no, right? So no result, meaning it's not running. Let's open it. Now it's open. Let's immediately run the query just to not give it too much time to synchronize or replicate. So it's running a new query against my device, and now as I am running against the correct device, I could actually see that this one is running. So this is kind of for information, right? And so I'm not able to take action on this. So what if I don't want this to be running? It would be pretty nice to be able to take some kind of action from this specific view we are looking at right now. So that's an improvement we would like to see, of course. But let's say we are doing some troubleshooting instead. So here I have a query. So let's say I have a user. I have Jürgen on the phone, and Jürgen is unable to connect to Wi-Fi, and he calls me. And I say, yeah, well, Jürgen, you will need to have one of the shiny new Cloud PKI solution certificates on your device. Let's see if you have it or not. So we will query the certificate here, and we will do contains CA. So it's kind of CA-01. It's wildcarding. So that's why we get all of these hits here in the result view down here. And as you can see, Jürgen does actually have the certificate. And if he did not, that would be kind of our starting point in doing troubleshooting. We would need to make sure that, okay, Jürgen, you're unable to connect because you don't have a certificate, and hopefully you are able to kind of, maybe you're on the guest network right now, so we can do the queries, right? Or cable is connected or something. But there are a lot of more cool stuff we could do with this. Just a last demo for troubleshooting. Maybe we want to query a Windows service, and it is supposed to be starting automatically, but it is currently not. So that's kind of the exclamation mark here is making this a not state. So it's not running. So let's see what is supposed to be running but is not running. It'll take some time, and here you can see these are the services, the kind of a user-friendly display name here, and this is the state. So we could see that right here and then that we have 4 services that are supposed to be running but are not for some reason. Most of these do actually make sense that they aren't, but for troubleshooting this is pretty great because we don't even need to connect to the device or doing stuff. You know, we don't need to kind of bother the user in the first kind of first line, second line troubleshooting for a specific ticket. We could actually do this from here, and it's a per device query, so I can't, as for now, I am not able to do multiple queries, so I can kind of mark this query right here and run it against multiple devices at the same time. So that's something that would be great as well to see, of course. But for troubleshooting for this kind of thing, it's really great, and it's good to see, you know, stuff happening in real time, I would say. Yeah, and of course, as Jürgen mentioned as well, if you have blue screens and so on, this would be a good query. We could query the event for the system log the last 7 days, and we'll search for event ID 41, and if we have had any blue screen or deaths, they will most likely show up here on this, and so that's kind of where we would look at the next step after finding out within the timeline or as an anomaly, of course. And then we have battery health. So battery health is something we have within the advanced analytics as well. It's pretty great in doing stuff proactively, right? A bad battery is something a user could actually get used to, because it's kind of getting worse and worse over time. So they could actually get used to it. But we could set up some baselines. So one of those would be like alert us when a battery's capacity is below 60%. So it's kind of going to compare how good it was initially and how bad it is currently, and then we will get a capacity in percentages out of that equation, and we could get an alert, and this is great if you are leasing devices, if you're and they need to change the battery. Nowadays it's pretty hard to change battery. Usually means like a motherboard change or something, but at least we know, right? And we could bring this back to our OEM who's delivering the devices, and we could proactively change them if required. And this is kind of what it looks like within the portal. We get the battery health score. That's our overall of 37. And on the insights and recommendations here on the right side, we can see that we do, within my small tenant, actually have 2 devices with batteries below 60% of capacity. So something would probably need to be done with those. They in my case, they are all old, so that's why. So yeah. So for conclusions then, Jörgen.
Yes. Everything in advanced endpoint analytics is about user experience, and as we said, enhanced timeline and the device query are powerful tools for troubleshooting as well, and combining device query with remediations on demand. I would say that that's the new way of troubleshooting devices when we are in a zero trust world and we don't want to remote control the end user every time, because it takes up your time and it also takes up productivity time for the end user. So I would say that that's important tools in the toolbox, right? But let's continue on. Let's have a look at the enterprise app management or enterprise app catalog, right? So basically it's advanced app management. It's available as standalone as well, if you like. And it's integrated in Intune, which is really cool. Later, Microsoft added this new little disclaimer saying that Microsoft doesn't do anything, don't have anything for compliance or authorizations for distributing this app with Intune. You're as a customer responsible for that yourself. So that's interesting. We have 451 applications in there and versions. That's also different versions of the same application, but I counted them today. So we need to take this into account. Self-updating is something you need to be aware of, if it is or if it's not. Content will come from Intune, so you don't have to do anything. And right now we're seeing that Adobe Reader is missing, which we get a lot of questions about. There's no indication either if there's a new version of an application being released, and there's no clear SLA either at this point in time. But let's have a quick look at it and I can show you what we talk about. And we're going to do a good example as well. So we have remote help left to talk about. I hope you have time to stay even if we're over time soon. So if we go in here and we say remote help, we just deploy the remote help agent from here, of course. And then it says it's self-updating. So we need to make sure that we want to do this. And I select that version of remote help. And then it says self-updating. This is something you need to be aware of, because some applications are not self-updating in a good way, like Power BI Desktop. They will prompt you for local admin permissions, and the same is here. So if we actually go in here, it actually has said enable auto updates 0, which is what it should do, because there's no built-in elevation support for updating it automatically. The problem is that it shouldn't say that it's self-updating. So you need to take that into account of everything you do. We also need to add the icon ourselves if we want the icon in there. Not a big deal. We can do that. And then we get everything for free, right? So I mean, it's good, but there are some other limitations as well. It's a different type of application, as it's not a Win32 app. It's a Windows Catalog app, Win32, which means I can't supersede a Win32 app with App Catalog app. We can't add it to the ESP, but I don't think that's a big issue either. We can live with that. So it's getting there. It's getting improvements. And what I think is best with this is that when Microsoft does this now, that drives other innovation as well. Like when they added support for automatically update user available apps. That's because we need it here as well to have this as a good solution, right? So I think this will drive some good development in Intune as well. So I'm not going to talk more about Enterprise App Catalog than that. And if you want to request apps, they had a different form for it now, but now it's actually in the Intune feedback portal, and you're supposed to enter EAM, app request, and app name, and that's good because then you can see what everyone else is requesting as well. So if we go in there and add Adobe Reader as they have as an example here as well, which is actually quite interesting, then we maybe get it back again. So now that I deployed a remote help agent using Enterprise App Catalog, Niklas, what am I supposed to do with it?
Yeah. So thank you for staying with us, even though we are running a bit late here. There's such a huge topic here to speak about. So let's see. I'm gonna steal your share here, Jürgen. Yeah. Okay. So remote help. So a lot of times when we talk about this with our customers, we do actually get the question, but what about the quick assist? But it's been around for ages. It doesn't require a license, and it works really well. Well, this is an opinion shared by threat actors as well, that it works really well, because I was about to say pretty recently, but it's been for a case, like a real case for some time now. But threat actors are actually misusing the quick assistant to assist to gain control over your users' devices, and they do so by social engineering attacks. They will reach out to your users over Teams and say, hey, I'm from this help desk team here. We need to fix something with your device real quick, and then they will be really nice to the user and show him or her exactly how to kind of get going with quick assist, and then they could do a really good amount of harm that way. And this is because quick assist doesn't require you to sign in and authenticate and prove that you are you, right? So that's why we have the remote help tool, which I would probably call quick assist version 2. I'm not going to talk too much about this. There are some requirements, but it's really, really nice to see remote help being included in A1 for devices, and the education license bundles as well. So you don't require to have the Intune suite if you are on one of those licenses. And both helper and the sharer. So the helper means the admin, first line help desk, or the sharer would be the user, right? And they do require a license for this, and a good amount of supported platforms, everything from Windows to Mac OS, and so on. There are some network that needs to be, we need to be able to connect for this. It does use HTTPS RDP, which is encrypted with TLS 1.2. And as you can see here, both the helper and the sharer must be able to reach like a bunch of different addresses and so on. So it's back to talking to the network team to make sure we don't find ourselves in a situation where this kind of traffic is interrupted or blocked in any way. And once we've done that, I will actually skip this because I will demo it instead. And as I mentioned here, we could actually use the enterprise app catalog to deploy and install the remote help app. So kind of a synergy between those features here. And last thing here on this slide I want to mention is it's really nice to see that remote help does support conditional access, RBAC roles, PIM, phishing resistant MFA to make it a really secure experience rather than what we have with a quick assist, right? So we could actually make enforce a phishing resistant MFA like a FIDO key or something for our admins before they are allowed to connect to any of our user devices, right? So just a good layer of security. Okay, so let's have a look at remote help. So this is my device. I am signed in here to the Intune portal as the helper. So let's say I have a situation where I did check the anomalies and all that stuff from the advanced analytics side of things. I did run the device query. I couldn't really figure out what is going on and so on. So I find myself in a situation where I do need to connect to the device for further troubleshooting. So what I will do, I will find the device, and I will check here on the ribbon, the action ribbon, and when we have enabled remote help, we will have a new remote assistant session option here. If you haven't enabled it, it will be grayed out. So I will do so. I do probably have the user on the phone, right? So right now I'll click it. I will let the user know that, hey, you should have a pop-up down to your right showing you the next step like really soon. So once I click this one, I'll head over to the sharer, which would be the user and the end user. And as you can see here, this is in Swedish. It does say Niklas wants to create a remote session to your device. I'll click it. It will open the remote help app for me. So that's really nice as well. I don't need to open it up, prepare anything. The pop-up screen will show up, and you just need to click it. And as you can see here, waiting for the person helping you to set up the session. So I'll jump back to being an admin or the helper again. Okay, so I will click launch remote help, and from here I will need to decide, okay, so what's going to happen? Do I just want to view the desktop, or do I want to be able to move around the cursor, type from the keyboard and so on? So in this case, I will ask the user for, please, I need full control for this. And I'll go back to my sharer as in the user device. And now I can see that Niklas is asking for full control. Do you agree? Yes or no? Remember to close anything you don't want them to see. Okay, so I've closed all my secrets, and now I'm ready to allow Niklas to gain full remote connection control over my device. Okay, so the first thing we can see is up here. We have we kind of know about this since if you've been using RDP or something similar before, me as the end user could actually cancel control or create a chat from here. And also, I'm not sure how good it looks on my screen sharing here, but there's a yellow distinct outline of my full desktop here, which is an indication that someone is actually connected to my device. And if I go back to the admin perspective, so now I have, I'm connected to the share desktop here, and I can start doing stuff. So the first thing I want to mention is if we don't enable what's called the administrator role, we will actually be blocked when it won't show the UAC prompt. So if you forget about it, this is what's going to happen, and we will actually need to ask the user, hey, could you click the no button for me? He or she will say yes, and you will need to enable the admin session or the administrator mode. And once we have done that, gonna take a second or two, and now I will be able to do stuff. And from here, I can provide Windows Labs password or whatever account I'm using to do whatever I need to do. And what more? There are some. If the user has multiple monitors, we could click between those and change monitor. We have like if you are not using the full control mode and you need to guide the user, it could be good, like click this button please for me, something like that, like just marking stuff, and this will be visible to the user as well. Yeah, so that's kind of it for this one. It is a good experience in my experience, but there are some stuff to know about. It doesn't support unattended connections for Windows, so you will need to ask the user to approve it and all that stuff, right? So that's something that could come in the future. I'm hoping for it to show up real soon. And we do have a web app as well for this. I'm not going to demo it, but if you don't have, maybe the remote help app is broke for something and didn't do its work, then we have a possibility to use a web app as well for this. And so the helper would need to have one URL, and the sharer as the user will visit another. And then what we will have is at least a view only situation. So it's not possible to use the web app and have full control, but view only could be good enough, and it's a great alternative to the desktop app if needed. But of course, the desktop app is the first preference here. And some lessons learned about remote help. It does require cloud push notifications to be enabled. So if you are using Windows 365 and if you are on the optimized image, you will actually find out the hard way that for some reason cloud push notifications are not or is not enabled. So you will need to create a policy to enable it, and this will actually affect a lot of things, and it will make like device query doesn't work. Cloud notifications is required for remote help, otherwise it won't show the prompt right down to the right to the end user. So it's definitely something to check for. And if you are using some security baselines like SIS or something, we have seen that cloud push notifications is recommended to be disabled. So if you are utilizing any of those benchmarks as security baselines, then consider making an exception for that one. File transfer, there is not a file transfer button within the tool, but you could actually do like copy and paste, like Control-C, Control-V for some easy and small file transfer. If you read the documentation, it isn't working or supposed to work. I guess when they say that the remote help app doesn't support a file transfer, they mean the equivalent of like a file transfer wizard or something, but copy paste and so on for small files and folders does actually work. So that's something to consider as well. And if we are trying to connect to a device which is not compliant within Intune, then it will show you a warning which is great as well, right? So down to the right here, we will see get a warning that this device is not compliant for your organization's security policies. And if you are, been using Intune for some time and whatnot, then you know about compliance. But chances are that the users, the admins that are using the remote help app, like first line, second line, maybe they don't know or are aware what compliance even is. So they will, be really concerned about this one. So you need to educate the admins as well. We are really good at educating users in doing stuff and how to work, but with this tool, we definitely need to educate the admins as well, so they are aware of this. Okay, Jörgen. So that's pretty much sums up the remote help, probably the fastest remote help demo and talk I have done so far. So time to sum it up.
Absolutely. Yeah, time to sum it up, right? So Intune Suite basically is a license bundle of enhanced device management features in Intune. Me and Niklas, we call it Intune Premium sometimes when we like, or Intune, yeah. So, and the rest is Intune Core, what we have in the normal Intune license as well. And there's good things in each of the products. Comparing them one by one, as we said, there's room for improvements in some of them, but it's still a really good addition and starting to look really good. And they are investing heavily in this, both in device query, advanced analytics, and remote help as well, to get this better and better. So this is good. It's good things coming as well. So if you have any more questions, feel free to contact us. And sorry for dragging over time. We had a bad start there, but now we're on time at least. So, or not on time, but now we're done at least. So thank you for listening today.
Yeah, thank you. And it's at least before lunch, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's something at least. So,
yeah. So next time you will aim for doing it 45 minutes more, or no, I'm just kidding. But it's excellent. Yeah.
And
So
the recording
thank you for
will
listening.
be the recording will be shared afterwards as well. And if there are any other questions that hasn't been answered, we try to sum that up in a mail afterwards as well, so everyone get their answers on their questions.
Excellent. Well, thank you everyone, and thank you Octavio for connecting from Mexico as well. So have a good rest of the day and try to get some sleep, Octavio.
Yeah. Thank you for attending.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.